So
How do you feel as ये education वाली बात that you were saying, and people have been primed and stuff. Uh, what was your जब election भी हो रहे थे, you were there, and ever since then, social media, you became aware of it, or in a much bigger way. Uh, how do you have you had to deal with like non-army people's armchair analysis of army का influence, good, bad in Pakistan? सब एजेंसियों का काम है इस तरह का scene. Like, does that come up? Because I mean, I don't know anything, but मेरे सामने आता है, मैं कुछ कह देता हूँ वो from based off whatever I read 2 days ago
mhm,
or 3 days ago.
yeah.
Um, and I have no real exposure to it.
Mm,
But has that come up in like in your personal life? Also, you left Pakistan, so maybe
mm,
you've escaped the worst of it. But
yeah.
yeah.
Only all the time.
Oh, acha.
Uh, I mean, like, especially like we have like close to what 200 million people in Pakistan, and
Hmm.
every other Tom, Dick, and Harry is a keyboard
Yeah,
jihadist,
yeah, yeah.
right?
We're all
So,
experts.
and everyone is a defense analyst and a think tank
Yeah.
in Pakistan, so they have their say, and that's fine, man. Like, I mean, people have their opinion. At the end of the day, if you really believe in what you're doing, and if you think, and you can see the results of that as well, coming to fruition, you just, because people I was, when I was in PMA, my platoon, one of the first thing that he said in Fallen was, opinions are like assholes and everybody has one. So that's something that is really close to my heart. And before that, I would actually let a lot of people affect me,
Hmm.
and you would take everything to, okay, no, maybe this is like a personal attack on me. But then you realize that this person, wherever they're coming from, is a position of ignorance, and obviously this has no backing or no knowledge whatsoever. And you don't have the time to answer everyone. But
Yeah.
sometimes, obviously, people, when people have influence in a society like ours, where the media is they'll portray whatever they want, and wherever the funds are coming from, it becomes, I think it's a social responsibility of ours, and I feel that it's my responsibility as well, that if somebody likes that in a position of influence, if they talk about like that, you need to
Hmm.
negate. That's probably the least and that you can do, that you come out and say, no, this is not the this is not what happened, or this is not right. um,
Hmm.
that's the least that you can do. But other than that, like every other person on Facebook, when they're like, "Oh, army जो है सारा budget खा गई है और ये कर
Yeah.
गई है,
Yeah.
वो कर गई है." Like, I mean, there is like no truth whatsoever to that. I have my reservations about the army. There are a lot of bad things that happen, and there are a lot of things that I'm like, okay, no, this needs to stop. And I've tried in my own capacity to change those things, and I feel that to some point I was actually able to do that with my men, with people who were under my influence, and my friends that I know in the army. And because obviously we are evolving as a species as well. It's only fair that the institution gets evolved, or you keep your traditions and stuff, everything that's good. But the world is moving ahead, right? This is the era of modern warfare. There are different tactics going on. There's cyber warfare, and there's psychological ops and all that stuff. And that's true. Like, earlier it used to sound like maybe a conspiracy theory, but now that when you see that you can move the polls in anyone's favor, and
Hmm.
you can just do anything with the power of media now. Our minds are being harvested now with companies like the big tech, and your Facebook, the kind of ads that you see. Everything is just conditioned, and you are the product basically.
Hmm.
When we're living in this sort of a environment, I think anyone in their capacity, they should speak out whenever they see injustice, and whenever they see any false information being spread about. Then most of the people they can actually make sense of things
Hmm.
as well.
Do you feel,
If
given your own, but just to like flip that sort of argument a bit, given that you spent so much time in the army, and even though you're not like a close-minded hyper patriot kind of person, do you feel that there is perhaps legitimate criticism of some things about the army that you perhaps were not aware of, and if shown to you, you will be able to readily accept it, or do you think it'll be like a
yeah,
blind
I think
spot for you a bit?
No, not really. I feel like I try to be very objective and
Okay.
unbiased in the things, but at the same time, there are things that, and I think about those things a lot. But then I'm like, okay, no, I have actually personally experienced that. So I have whatever I think and say has to have some sort of authority at least. And that other person who, whatever they said was, okay, I'll do my own, research and I'll tell you. But then when I tell you, you don't have the experience and I have the experience. So when we are having an argument or a debate or whatever, at least, try to, walk a mile in my shoe.
Hmm.
So no, there are some, like, what, I don't know, specify, like, give me an
No,
example.
I'm just asking like generally because obviously, you've had your set of experiences and you've seen
Mhm.
everything that you have seen. So obviously there can
Yeah.
be no denying that because it's fact,
Mm.
as for it's been your life.
Yeah.
But given the nature and there's also a lot of like psychological and emotional like you mentioned the conditioning ki hum sab we're
Mm.
like there's one army, one purpose, Pakistan ki difa वगैरह वगैरह.
Mm.
That's in your mindset and everyone's mindset, but everybody in the army does not necessarily have to be playing by the same rules. So
Mhm.
both things might be true where you're like, I didn't see anybody taking things for I'm just making up an example now
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
solve
That's
the thing.
fine.
But there could be multiple experiences uh, of people where I think you talked about this. कि मतलब जो लोग army छोड़ते हैं, they're like, bro, हम best हैं. Like if you weren't in the army, you don't know shit. And that
Mm.
might be true for a
No, जो
certain
लोग आर्मी छोड़ते
perspective.
हैं, not जो लोग, हाँ, absolutely. Okay, this is actually a really good point. Yeah, there is one thing that I find really unnerving, and it's not the army as an institution. It's just individuals in the army. It's just sometimes and it's sort of like a wavelength.
Mm,
It has its crests and it has its falls in the
mm,
relationship
mm,
between the
mm, mm.
Pakistan army and the people of Pakistan. Right? Whenever you do something good, you're like, oh, सैलाब आ गया, फौज बड़ी फिट है, क्योंकि इन्होंने जो है पानी के अंदर जाके उन्होंने लोगों को बचा लिया. और जरा सा कुछ, like, anything controversial happens and like, oh no, फौज हमारी बिल्कुल ही फारिग है. So this, I feel like we can close that gap. The army can actually close that gap if we actually expose a life of a soldier, or your everyday soldier to the people. I think this is now the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
because there's this really big gap between the civilian and the Pakistan, and because of the things like the unity and everything which is required in the army, especially when you're in the battlefield. It has its, on the flip side, it has its negative effects as well, like being, all right, I'm all that, or मैं कलफ गांव के अंदर जी मैं कलफ वाली शलवार में संगे जाऊंगा, सारे सलूट मारेंगे मुझे. Okay, that's what a soldier does, right? Like
Right.
that's yeah, because for them it's a matter of pride, which is good. But like as you move up the ranks, and as this sort of sometimes it can be cancerous as well, and as it spreads, that's how you think about other people. When you grow in the ranks, you think, okay, I know everything, but the other person doesn't know. So there is lack of collaboration, therefore.
Mm,
And when there's lack of collaboration, distances just grow, and the divide sort of
mm.
becomes